Hey everyone, it's Joe Waxman. Today, I want to look at the chart of Harland David Sanders. Colonel Sanders, let's call him Colonel Sanders of KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now, disclaimer, I do not eat Kentucky Fried Chicken. I do not eat any fast food, and I think it's poison. I think all fast food is poison, and I don't think anyone should eat it. I believe it or not, I don't eat chicken at all, period. Zip. I was born and raised that way, never ate chicken. Not that I never tasted it. I have, and I don't like it. I don't like the smell. I do not eat chicken at all, period. Uh, get that out of the way, I guess. So, no, I'm not interested in him from a fast food point of view. I think fast food is terrible, but he did not start out making fast food. In fact, his life was very interesting, and that's why I chose to do his chart. He had a lot of difficulties for the first half of his life, and it's just really interesting. So his chart reflects that. So it's just an interesting person to read his astrology chart. So I'm just going to share the screen. Colonel Harland David Sanders. All right. I mean, first off, look at all the red, all these squares and oppositions. I mean, this is difficult. It's got a mutable square here, and then a fixed T-square here. So a lot of when people have a lot of squares in their chart, they're going to go through difficulties. They're going to go through hardships, but what it's going to do is train them to work really hard. They're going to be very hard workers through difficulty, through defeat, and through sheer determination. They get through it. And he definitely had a lot of that. So, yeah, I mean, first of all, Sun and Saturn in Virgo. Now, it's not too close. That is about 9 degrees apart. But Sun and Saturn is difficult. They become the Sun, the personality takes on a very Saturnian element quality. They themselves become very hardworking, very disciplined, very Saturnian. There could be difficulties with the father, because both Sun and Saturn can represent the father. Saturn can represent any authority figure, grandparents, bosses, the law, any authority figure in their life. And Sun can often represent the father or government or things like that. So right away we can see that there's a challenge. And in Virgo, neither of these are, it's not terrible for either, but not great. But Saturn is making a nice trine to the ascending Capricorn. So that is good, actually. That's quite good for the ascendant. Because it's making aspect with rulership. And this is in the, technically, I mean, by quadrant, it's in the 8th house, but it's in the 9th whole sign house. And how we know that? I mean, especially because it's trine. Like, what makes the 8th house the 8th house is because it's in conjunct, right? The in conjunction with the in conjunct sign would be Leo. But there's a nice trine here. But because the quadrants, I think 8th house still has some influence there. And if you read about his life, which I want to go to the Wikipedia just so I can point some things out. There were a lot of ups and downs. And I'll get there. I just want to tie it into some other things first. Let's see, Moon in Cancer. That's quite good for the moon. It's late degrees, but it's not the 29th degree, it's the 28th degree. So it's still okay. Moon rules Cancer. So partnerships, marriage. It is conjunct Chiron, and that is a difficulty. So don't recall anything about his wife, but there could have been difficulties there. She may, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say anything that's not true, but there could have been something chironic about her. Chiron, again, is good and bad. Especially when a person's younger, I think it takes on a much more negative quality of being representing wounds, rejection, just something weird or different, outcast, abnormal, sickly, um, things like that. As the person matures, it can be much more of a healing. Um, it's not a planet; it's an asteroid. Um, it's a weird body, actually. It's not even. It's like an asteroid comet, kind of weird oddity. Um, but it's known as the wounded healer. So there is a healing element to it. So this is a very caring, nurturing thing, especially as it matures, because these are quite conjunct. It's out of sign, obviously, but it's by 2 degrees, so it's still really close together. And it's in the 7th house. So his partner could have been a very caring, loving woman who is also a healer, potentially. Yeah, it is opposite Jupiter. Um, Jupiter is not in terrible dignity, not in great dignity. However, in esoteric astrology, Jupiter does rule Aquarius, but that's neither here nor there in this chart. It's part of a T-square with Venus, Venus is culminating right on the MC, which is well, by accidental dignity, it's called. By position, it's very strong because it's angular, but it's in Scorpio, so that's difficult. And we'll look at that more closely later. What's interesting is that his south node is conjunct Mars. And as you know, south node represents early life, first part of life, and what we came in this what we were born with, the skills that we were born with. But it's in the 12th house, it's in Sagittarius, not making much of an aspect to Jupiter as ruler, but I guess by sign there's some, by sign it's sextile, not by degree. But because it's a day chart, Mars is I believe it's called the out of sect malefic, meaning it's the most malefic planet. And because it's south node conjunct Mars, the most malefic planet, we can expect in the 12th house, we can expect that he's going to have some difficulty when he's young. Okay. Especially because it's not making much of an aspect to Jupiter. So there's not really much strengthening this conjunction. Not much dignity here. It's also square the sun. So that's quite difficult as well. But let me pull up share. Sorry, wrong thing. There we go. So he was born poor, and he had a lot of jobs. And this kind of reminds me of my own life, because I have a lot of jobs. But not only that, everything he didn't work out. He was discharged from the army. Okay, Mars. All right. Blah, blah. Got a job cleaning ash pans of trains from Northern Alabama Railroad. More Mars. Fireman, Mars. Fired for insubordination after he got sick. Insubordination, Mars, malefic, daytime chart, malefic. Western Railway, Mars. Got in a lot of fights. Okay, Here's a notable thing. He had 3 kids. One of them died young, which I'll tie in to the chart. Sanders lost a job brawling with a colleague, Mars. His legal career, he trained as a lawyer. His legal career ended after a courtroom brawl with his own client, destroyed his reputation. That's significant. I'll have to show you in the chart because bullheadedness, lack of self-control, impatience, self-righteous, lack of diplomacy. Moved back to his mother. His reputation's destroyed. Laborer in the Pennsylvania Railroad. That's Mars. Became a life insurance salesman. 7th house, Moon and Chiron. Fired for insubordination. Another sales job. Ferry boat company. Anyway, you get the picture. Just moving on from job to job to job. Very Mars, fighting, a lot of fighting, a lot of failure. And then later, he was, so 1920, he was age 30, 1930, he was 40. So now the North Node is starting to become active. And the Shell Oil Company offers a service station in North Carolina, Kentucky, rent-free, paying percentage of sale. Sanders began to serve chicken dishes and other meals out of county ham and steaks. Now that's the beginning of KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's where he got his start. I want to go back to sharing the chart. Then from there, it just grew and grew and grew. But all right, so South Node Mars, we can tell it's all bad because there's nothing good here. It's activating Mars, it's activating Jupiter, which Jupiter's fine. Jupiter's not bad, but it's not really doing much in his chart. Okay, Mars is ruling his MC, right? Because Scorpio. So that's why his reputation is being tarnished. Also, Sun in the 8th quadrant. And Saturn, his ascendant lord. Even though there's some good things, his reputation still suffers, especially from Mars, because it's the out-of-sect malefic. Mars is the most damaging planet in his chart for a daytime chart. He was born in the day at 2:30 p.m. Right? If it was nighttime, it would be Saturn. So we saw all that, and here's some sales stuff. You know, Moon in the 7th. You know, his moon, his emotions, his heart is very connected towards relationships and other people. It comes out when he's relating with other people. That's why he can do things like sales, even though that's not really his destiny overall. It does have a nice trine to Ceres, and Ceres, I left this in because the trine and Ceres relates to food, believe it or not. So I thought that was interesting. But then we go to his North Node. His North Node's in Gemini, conjunct this really tight conjunction of Pluto and Neptune. Obviously, this is a generational conjunction. I don't know what happened during this time, but you can see this little S here that shows Neptune is stationary. It's standing completely still. Now, it's very rare. Stationary retrograde. But the speed is 0, 0, 0, 0. It's like zero, all zero. So a stationary planet is at its most potent, most strong. And the conjunction with Pluto and the North Node, even though it's far, is still influential because it's all in the 1st house and it's 6th house cusp. Even though these are in the 5th house, is moving towards the 6th house, especially because North Node is over on the 6th house side. And why 6th house? Well, 6th house often deals with food. Why? Because mundane daily routine, daily tasks. Food is definitely part of the 6th house because it's something we need to do every single day. You know, we need to cook, we need to eat. You know, it's part of the daily grind. It's our daily efforts. Food is very mundane in that way. So he's not making, it's not like, even fine dining, you see fine dining people with sixth house stuff, Gordon Ramsay. But here, this is very powerful, right? And then what do we, Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Where's Mercury? Mercury is all the way up here in Libra. This is the 10th whole sign house, even though it's the 9th house, 10th whole sign house. It's straight up there. Libra, what's Libra ruled by? Venus. Venus conjunct the MC. This is activating this whole thing, right? South Node. I mean, this is how you can divide a person's life. South Node won't be so influential if there's not, planets and aspects conjuncting it. Then you will look elsewhere. But if there is strong planets conjuncting the South Node and strong aspects to the South Node, then it is very significant, right? It is creating a divide. So it's going to be different for different people. If Mars wasn't here, it wouldn't be nearly as influential. But because Mars is here and it's out of sect malefic, then it's causing him a lot of troubles when he's young, creating fights and many manual labor jobs and just division and hardship. And it's ruling as ascendant lord in the 12th house. So it's bringing him into like just negative 12th house stuff, like isolation, hard work, just trouble and difficulty. And this Jupiter is not really doing that much. I mean, it's okay. It's not bad. Jupiter's never that bad, but it's not in great dignity. It's not making any good aspects to Saturn, its ruler, or Uranus. Yeah, so I mean, that's a trine by sign, but not by degree. The degrees are way off. Yeah, so this Jupiter is not doing all that much. So that's why he was kind of flailing. But all these squares were making him work really hard. Then we get this is much more positive. North Node in Gemini. In Gemini are skills of the hands, skills in general, the intellect. It's fine. It's good. It's good because Mercury's up here and then activating Venus again. And then this very powerful Pluto Neptune conjunction. Neptune's stationary and Pluto's very powerful. Anyway, so I think that's really dynamic and really unique. Either way, the sun is square the nodes. And by the way, so is Eris. And I don't know how much this ties into it, but I left it in here just because it's part of this really dynamic square. And it's exactly square the nodes and opposite the sun by 2 degrees. But anything that's square the nodes or conjunct the nodes is part of somebody's destiny. And the sun has to do with fame. So, when a planet square the nodes, then it's somewhere within their destiny. Like if the South Node represents the past, North Node represents the future, then what's square the nodes is going to be somewhere along the way. They're going to have to deal with it. And Sun often represents fame. And we know that not only is Kentucky Fried Chicken famous, but Colonel Sanders, even after he sold it, I don't know if you know the story, but he sold it for $2 million, which in today's money, that would be about like, I don't know, maybe 170 million, I guess, or 17 million, maybe. I don't know. I think it said in Wikipedia, but I don't feel like going back. Anyway, a lot more in today's money. But he became the symbol of Kentucky Fried Chicken. So square the sun. So there's some destiny there with the sun and the nodes. The nodes, these are the nodes of destiny. So if the sun is conjunct the north node or the south node, that can indicate fame. But now we're seeing, even if it's square the nodes, it can indicate fame. So if your sun is square the nodes, or there's any strong nodal contact, there could be some fame involved. I'm not saying there will be definitely, but there is a potential for that. The other thing is, so Venus is ruling the fourth house cusp and the fifth house. So if it's ruling the fifth house cusp, it's ruling the fifth whole sign house, is the fifth whole sign house. And then one of his kids died because Venus is in Scorpio. Scorpio always relates to death. Not always, often. I can't say always, but often it relates to death. And it's ruling the fifth, the child's children, house of children. And then it's also ruling the IC. So technically, fourth full sign house would be Aries, Mars, 12th house, but the IC is in Taurus, ruled by Venus. So what's the significance there? Well, real estate, building, home. So like fourth and fifth house, or fourth and sixth house. The sixth house is about food here, and then fourth house is about a building, right? So this clearly indicating a restaurant that some sort of real estate, some sort of building, some sort of hard physical material building is going straight to the top in his career, right? He's going to elevate that to his career. So that's, very fitting for a restaurant, right? To have success as a, famous restaurant, a restaurant that he franchised and became very, very successful, right? That's what a fourth house, fourth lord in the 10th, that's, that would indicate somebody who makes a lot of money in real estate or hard material, physical building assets, things like restaurants and buildings and houses and that sort of thing. His part of fortune's in the 10th house as well in Scorpio. So, that's also very clear and straightforward. What else? I think that's pretty much it. I'm not going to go over each square because it's just kind of going to be daunting. But there's just so much strife and struggle within his chart. You can see that. Just like everything was a challenge for him. Everything was an uphill battle. Everything was a fight. And I heard even at one point he was suicidal before he really made it. And he was just like, he just wanted to kill himself because he failed at everything and he was just struggling nonstop. But I think it's a great lesson and a great story to remind us all that, we're not all going to have easy success, and we're not all going to have, our futures handed to us on a silver platter. We're going to have to struggle. And, even if it takes us a long time, he didn't really become successful. It took him I think over a decade to make his restaurant successful. And, so it wasn't until much later in life where he really became a somebody, a something. And prior to that, it was just a lot of struggle, a lot of strife, so many different jobs, so many different fights and arguments. One of his children died young. It just was not easy for him. And that's why I chose this chart. Very, very difficult. Sun conjunct Saturn, so many squares, just terribly, uneasy, difficult life that in the end paid off. But even after he sold it to some, very just businessmen who did not care. They are the ones who made it into this junky fast food chain and really lowered the quality. He was the one who invented pressure deep frying the chicken and the secret spices, and it cooked it in much less time and made it much more tender. And that you can see here with North Node, Pluto, and Neptune. Neptune's very creative. Pluto is very powerful and deep. And then the North Node is just very obsessive and material, which is desirous and material gain. And third house, Gemini, not third house. Gemini is very skillful. Sixth house is hardworking and mundane, so like food, right? So that I think is very obvious here. And then that's coming right to the top. This, good success here. And then Uranus, I didn't even mention. It's not making any major stuff here, except that it's very high in the chart, and it's just adding to his originality, his uniqueness, his independence. He's just doing his own thing, and he's very successful at it. 3 strong planets here. Technically these are in the 9th house, but it's the 10th whole sign house. And because Venus is conjunct the MC, then the flow is moving towards the MC. So, yeah. 8th house sun is very bad for reputation as well, by the way. Can easily damage reputation. I have 8th house sun. I'll never be a good politician, but good for astrology and those things like that. So anyway. All right, guys, I just thought it was so fascinating how his life was really divided up by these nodes, this nodal axis. You could really see it with the negative influence of Mars here, and then the positive influence of this 6th house conjunction, leading to 9th, 10th house influence and success. So that's it for Colonel Sanders. Hope you enjoyed that, found it interesting. Totally fascinating for me. And as always, if you want to book a reading, you can go to my website, macroastrology.com, or you can just email me at macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.